Hello and welcome to this week's Betting People, where I have the honour and privilege of being joined by Jess Stafford, a woman of many talents, most commonly seen, I think it's fair to say, on RTV, although she is also known as the face of Thurloe Thoroughbreds, and we're going to get into lots of that over the course of this interview. But first things first, there's been a lot of governance issues in racing recently, so I want to ask you, what three things would you change if you were in charge of British racing?
I would tear up the race program, start again. I would re-look at the levy board and how our racing is funded. And I'd install a strong and dynamic leader. And I would have governance which I could be proud of, that I could feel allows us to be inspired. I am normally a pretty positive person, and I've been in racing now my whole life, but professionally for the last 6 or 7 years. And I began very positive and normally saw the better side of any disappointments. But I've come to the conclusion now that we don't have a strong enough leader, a strong enough purpose for racing to stand on its legs and be proud of itself. And I think the way that racing is set up is essentially bound to fail. There's too much bureaucracy. There's not enough leadership that can inspire me as a younger person in racing. Obviously, things like the program books, things like prize money, things about like facilities, getting more people to racing is just part of the product. But we can't change any of that until we have a very specific route that is controlled by, perhaps it's more, obviously it has to be more than one person, and there are so many aspects of racing that needs to be represented, but there needs to be strong leadership that we can be proud of. And sadly, the BHA, whether they want to be a leader or not, or they want to be the governance behind the leaders, the various leaders, and they just want to be representative and they want to be whatever they want to be, they're still the British Horse Racing Authority. And for me, I look to them for leadership and for purpose, and I need them to give us the answers, and I don't see that. And I was disappointed when I heard the new head of the BHA, Joe Summers-Smith, come in and not give me that total confidence behind what he wants to set out to achieve. I didn't hear from his interview with Nick Luck recently an answer that got me really excited and really positive. He was asked about his vision for the sport and where the sport would be in his mind in 10 years' time and how we can look and feel better. And his answer was, that's not for me to answer. And that was really hard. I thought it might not be what you want. It might not be for you to answer in stages, because obviously you want everyone to be part of the conversation. But I want someone just to say, I want this to be the best place to go racing in the world. I want someone to say, we can be the best in class. We can be world leaders. We can be leading the way for owners, jockeys, trainers, participants. I want to be that. And I will do everything I can to make that happen. That's what I want. And at the moment, I'm not hearing any of that.
So with that in mind, are there any figures you think could provide that inspiration and that pride that you feel is so sorely lacking in the leadership of British racing? Do you have any names in mind? And also, is there anything you've seen overseas that you think we should be adopting here? Because you made the point about us being the best in class. But there's so many positive experiences we hear about in world racing in terms of how things are done and what the governance is like, what the prize money is like. Where should we be looking to overseas?
Australia, Japan, Hong Kong. Obviously, they've all got different rules and regulations. They've got different ways of working with the bookmakers. They've got, for lots of reasons, they're not perfect either. And when I say best in class, we aren't best in class right now, but I want us to be best in class. I think there are jurisdictions that are striving to be best in class. I think that the way that Australia is set up allows them to be. They use COVID and lockdown and wagering and more eyes on racing during that time as a opportunity to gain more share of the pool and get more money back into racing. I see the healthy competition that's between the jurisdictions within Australia as a good way to allow racing to move forward. We have race courses that are divided up between, obviously there are independents, but the Arc and the Jockey Club. There should be healthy competition between each other instead of being so roads apart and so very different. They should be both wanting each other to be better, and that's what they seem to be doing well in Australia. Obviously, Japan has a model that is very different, is very unusual. There's a different system of ownership and a different system of training, and the amount of horses that some owners can have with different trainers and all things like that. But it seems to work with them, and they've got the product is working so well that it allows more people to get involved. Hong Kong, gambling for them is part of their culture, whereas we're scared of it and slightly embarrassed of it here. There's obviously learnings to use from everywhere. Unfortunately, a lot of the leaders that I see within the game would never take up a position of power. You know, I look at John Gosden and I think this man has traveled all over the world and seen so many aspects of racing, and he's an intelligent man that would be an absolute brilliant spokesperson for our sport internationally. And I would love him to play more of an active sort of role in consulting our sport, but you know, that's not within his interests. His interest is training horses. And I do think, sadly, because of the nature of these roles, we end up having figureheads that might have come from not that it's a bad thing coming from betting companies and things like that, because they're obviously paramount into the fabric of racing, but they don't necessarily see the intrinsic needs that the sports, the horseman needs. And I think we've really struggled to find that, the Peter Saville type, who was brilliant in his time going back 20, 30 years ago, because racing has become so large now and there are so many people that need to be represented. So it's a catch-22 situation. But I think there doesn't seem to be a person that exists that can bring all strands of needs together credibly, and that person just doesn't exist at the moment. But I struggle, and I can understand why it happens, because it's not necessarily a job that anyone wants to take on, is it? And it's a tricky situation. But I do think that racing, the leaders that are there set out at the moment have just been shooting themselves into the foot by not following through with the policies that we've set out could just benefit. You know, for example, recently this week, and the scrapping of the key races to dilute the race program to essentially benefit the competitiveness of our racing.
Totally. Field sizes is very much linked to that. So the race program, many people see it as being far too big and far too overloaded. And recently we've had a huge problem with field sizes, and also horses leaving the country, more and more horses leaving the country. What policies do you think would be helpful in trying to combat these two problems? Because it's something that everybody's now noticing, and punters aren't happy with it, obviously. Indeed, actually within courses who aren't happy with it, and also the paying race goer in some instances, we're seeing a lot of this. What's to be done basically about those two key things, because they're becoming bigger issues with every passing week, it seems.
Yeah, well, the first point you make about field sizes, I mean, we've just witnessed this controversial decision that the Julie Harrington and the members were on her side have essentially not gone through with their own policy, which is bemusing, frustrating. That would have been, as the statement said, it would have been a tactical change, but it would have been something that felt like something has been done to try and improve the situation. The field sizes is the lack of field sizes, quality in the field sizes, because there's too much racing. Too much racing is because the race courses demand it. They want more racing because of their profits. we're not working for the better of the wider, for the macro scale for the product. Again, I'll go back to the interview that I listened to with Joe Smith talking about the consumer and understanding about data and wanting to know more about the consumers that come into the race course and what their interests are, and trying to get inside the mind of people to then improve racing. That for me is completely the wrong take. You know, if I had a shop with clothes that I'm trying to sell that are too expensive, there's only 3 of them, so they're not interested. People come in, they look at it and think, that's expensive, there's not enough for me to be interested in, I'm just going to walk out again. I don't say what's wrong with the people that's coming in. I should have a look at what's wrong within my shop. We need to solve what's going on with inside the sport first before we get worried about the people that are coming in. People are only going to be attracted to racing if they feel like it's something attractive to go to. So that's the first initial problem that I have with the strategy, seemingly this route that we're going down. We're so worried about data and consumer behavior because the people that are coming into the race meetings are coming in for the wrong purpose anyway. Because if I was a member of the paying public coming racing, I'm not going because I think it's great racing at Aintree tonight. I'm going because it's a Friday night and I'm going to hang out with my friends. The people that are going racing to Cheltenham, to Aintree, to Ascot, to Goodwood are going for the quality of racing. It's all the parts in and around it. So why do we have so much? I don't know. We can't afford to have it anyway. We don't have the prize money. And that leads me on to your next question about why horses go. And from a personal perspective, with our race horses that we had a horse that won 4 times last year. He's a more of a mid-range horse. He was started at a rating of 70, ended up with a rating of 89 at the end of the season. He won 4 races and he couldn't afford to keep himself in training. We had to ask our syndicate members to come back and pay an extra £2,000 to keep him going for this season. We could have sold that horse off to Hong Kong, wherever it was, for, say, I don't know, £100,000, say. He's probably attractive for that market. But then you're going to divide out the money that everyone has paid, say they get a couple of £1,000 back up off the back of it. For us to then go back and say, right, why don't we go off and buy another horse? And we're back to square one, trying to buy the same horse to do the same job to then sell again. What we should be doing is getting double that prize money, having enough money to go off and buy another horse, so that actually we're growing our pie and we have more horses that we're racing, instead of chipping away at one horse and getting more people to spend on it. It doesn't make any sense. And again, it's an obvious answer, I'm afraid, but it comes down to the prize money. Why should a horse in that class 3, class 4 range not being able to earn his keep for the year? It makes no sense to me.
I think a lot of people would agree with that, and I think it's a great place to end part 1. Thanks you very much, Jess Stafford.
Thank you.